All right, it's time to talk NFL Draft 2022 Detroit Lions football, and that means Jeff Risdon is here, the editor, the managing editor for the Lions Wire. Good to talk to you again, Jeff, and good to talk post-NFL Draft football with you.
It is, and the Lions had a lot to do in this draft. We went up with 2 first-round picks and a lot of very interesting picks. So it's been a fun time to be a Lions fan.
Yes, I have. I definitely praised the Lions. I was really very pleased. I mean, it's really awesome to see the Lions, the Jags, and the Jets, 3 struggling franchises, all be as proactive as they were in a very positive way in the draft. And
I would agree. I really like what the Jets did, and I don't get to say that very often.
Yeah, right. I know that. Neither do I, unfortunately. But yeah, there's a lot of people, and now you're starting to hear the backlash of, the Lions and Jet fans. Who do they think they are? They won the offseason, big deal. I mean, come on, we know our place.
We do.
We're going to get excited just because we're jonesing for excitement.
Hey, if you've been a Detroit Lions fan for the last even 5 years, like, you're looking for anything positive to cling to. So you better believe we're going to celebrate when we do some good things.
That's right. And we talked about this last offseason, going into the season, about the changes that were taking place. And if you weren't an everyday Lions fan, you didn't know it. You didn't realize that this isn't the same ownership group hiring the same bozos to run the organization. This is a completely different makeup of what's going on, and it takes time. But even though the record didn't show it last year, once again, the offseason was just further proof about the direction that this franchise has taken.
They're making steps to be a viable football team in the modern NFL, and I think that's something that the prior regime, and we don't mention them by name in Detroit anymore. It's just that painful. But there's an emphasis on speed, on athleticism, on trying to possibly outscore the opponent instead of just trying to hold them to lesser points, and trying to get more dynamic athletes on the field in places where they can do good things with their athleticism. And it's going to take some time. It did take some time last year. Last year was rough, 3-13-1. That's not as good as anybody wanted. But given the circumstances with the radical changeover that was made between front office, coaching staff, quarterback, defense, it was a radical change, and now we're hoping that kickstarts what, with a good draft and a decent offseason that we've had thus far, will lead to the Lions being a competitive team and a team that people outside of Detroit will actually care about and want to watch. And that's not been something that's been the case in Detroit since Calvin Johnson retired back in 2015. It's been dark, man. Like, if you're not a Lions fan, why would you care about the Detroit Lions? I think that's been, it's hard to come up with reasons why. Now I think you're starting to get that, and people are catching on, and there's a little bit of national buzz going about how this team can be. I don't want to say that they can be the next Bengals and go from the cellar to the Super Bowl, but like, if there's any team that's going to do it, it could be Detroit this year. And I think that excitement and that reinvigoration is something that was desperately needed for the franchise.
And it helps also that they're in the NFC. That's for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. Things. That's the one thing of being a Jet fan. It's looking around, and it's not going to be easy, but that's why you do it for the long haul. That's why is if you just keep doing it straight ahead, 10-year plan, we're not trying to quick fix anything, you're okay. I mean, I'm okay with everything that's going on around you in the conference, because you just know that as long as you just take care of your own business, you're going to be okay, especially if you find the right quarterback. And I know we had this big discussion regarding Jared Goff and whether or not the Lions were going to be happy with Goff, and there were some opportunities considering Ritter and Corral went in the 3rd round. There were opportunities for the Lions to go with a quarterback in the 2nd round, the 3rd round. It would have been predictable. It would have been, wow, what a great move. They picked up a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round. Then maybe they got a guy, but they stuck their guns to Jared Goff. And we talked about the changes that the offense made second half of last year, and Goff, he looked better. And again, if you're not the Lions fan, you didn't realize these things.
Yeah, and especially the way that Jared Goff finished. The last 4 games that he played last year, he missed 1 game with an injury, and Tim Boyle filled in, and that didn't go well. But they look, they were the last team to get a win, and they were the first team to beat the Arizona Cardinals, and that happened in a span of 3 weeks. That they finished very strong. Goff was a certainly top 10 quarterback in the last month of the season, and arguably top 5 based on the numbers. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it was that they got rid of Anthony Lynn as the offensive coordinator. Dan Campbell, the head coach, took more control of the offense. Josh Reynolds came in as a wide receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown blossomed as a rookie. There was a whole confluence of things that happened, and that's one of the reasons why they're optimistic. And look, Jared Goff showed just enough at the end of the season that he is the unquestioned guy in 2022. He is absolutely playing for the quarterback of the future role in 2022. And if he will be here in 2023, it's because he did well this year. They, like you said, they eschewed many opportunities. There were a lot of people that thought they could take Malik Willis at number 2 overall.
Yeah.
And wow, how crazy that seems now after the fact.
Yes.
But like that was a big topic of conversation. They passed on him 3 times. They passed on Sam Howell, who I know that they liked from their time with him at the Senior Bowl. They passed on Matt Corral. They passed on Desmond Ridder multiple times. And it's pretty clear that they're okay with seeing if Jared Goff is the quarterback of the future in 2022. They still have 2 first-round picks next year if they want. Whether they're a playoff team or not, they're certainly going to be able to maneuver into the top 10, possibly top 5 with that combination of picks and assets that they have if they need to replace Jared Goff at that point. And I think they're comfortable with that situation at quarterback.
And I think it's a very smart move to say, you know what, look, even if we bring in one of these kids in the 2nd round or the 3rd round, it's still going to be a distraction. It's still, there's some fans, he has one bad game and they're going to be calling for the rookie quarterback. So it wouldn't have mattered if he wasn't a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to be seen as a Jared Goff defender because by and large, most of last year he was not good enough, and that needs to be made abundantly clear. He was not good enough for the first 8 to 10 games of the season. He was not good. Like you instantly understood why the Rams gave up on him. But the end of the season, when he started to get more comfortable and things around him started to get better, you saw why the general manager, Brad Holmes, who was the director of collegiate scouting in Los Angeles when they took him number 1 overall, you understood why he was still attracted to him. And you understand why there is some people in the organization that still believe in Jared Goff as a long-term solution. And look, that's what 2022 is going to be all about, is finding out whether he's the guy. They got him some weapons. They got a really nice supporting cast around him now. That's not something that he had the benefit of a year ago. With what they did in the draft and what they've done in the last, 12 to 16 months, they've really built a nice offense around Jared Goff. Or alternatively, if Goff isn't the guy, the next guy who comes in is looking at a pretty darn good situation to step into as a rookie quarterback or as a veteran making a change to a new team.
Yeah, and you would think that, again, with those 2 first-round draft picks, and if they struggle, which means Goff struggles, they'll be in prime position to take one of the 2 quarterbacks who I've already seen some mock drafts already, and I know that the edge rusher for Alabama is very talented. But if both of those quarterbacks are coming out, they're going to go 1 and 2. I don't want to hear anything about anything else. The reason why the edge
I'll tell you.
What's that?
I have no doubt that C.J. Stroud will be there. I wonder about Bryce Harris being 5'11", 180 pounds. And look, I know he plays at Alabama. I know he's talented. I have a really hard time seeing a lot of organizations trusting to that when you see what's happened with Tua and him being too small and he's significantly bigger.
Yeah, it might be a good idea to put on about 15 pounds this offseason.
It certainly would be nice if he could stretch himself out to be 6 feet tall, too, and maybe expand his hand size a little bit too, because I think that's
a good point.
As well.
Yeah, and there are good quarterbacks too. Besides that, next year's could be a loaded draft of quarterbacks, or at least the next couple of years. So Lions will have their fill.
Definitely.
It all started though with the ability to grab Hutchinson, the local guy, when Jacksonville decided to go with the higher ceiling maybe type of player and not the more. Right now he's more polished. He's a surer thing kind of guy, and to the benefit of the Detroit Lions. And I'm sure the fan base was awfully happy about that.
Oh, absolutely. Look, so in Michigan, obviously there's there's Michigan State fans. There are Ohio State fans here in the state, believe it or not. It's not just like that it's Michigan, but he went to high school 10 minutes away from the training facility in Allen Park. He went to a public school or a private school in Dearborn. He's from Plymouth. Like he grew up around Detroit. So he understands better than anyone what it means when the Detroit Lions are competitive and how rewarding it will be for the city when they do win. And look, they have to win at some point, right? I mean, look, one playoff win in the Super Bowl era. If he can help like double that and triple that in a year, and he has the ability to do that, he's a very talented guy. He knows full well what that means. So I think the local angle certainly helped. But look, one of the things, and you talked about upside with Trayvon Walker, and I do not deny that. I think people sell short how good of an athlete and how promising Aiden Hutchinson is. Like he can do more than what he did at Michigan. He can work on his outside in technique as a pass rusher. He can certainly work on absorbing the first block, getting through that, and then moving on. I think he's a little content to dance with the block at times. Like there is room for him to get better too, and he's got the extreme athletic tools. Are his arms shorter than ideal? Yeah. Everything else about that guy is beyond elite. It's right there. You know, the foot quickness, the strength, the open field speed, the ability to change direction quickly and accelerate out of it. It's all Von Miller basically, and you never hear him compared in that light. And I'm not saying that he's Von Miller. I'm not going to say he's going to have that kind of career, but the fact that he gets slept on for his athleticism is really interesting to me.
You know, I think it's going to be, and it's probably, you know, it could very well just also be because I'm just say it, he's white. I mean, it's just the way sometimes
that doesn't help him. That's for sure. You know, I have often compared him to Chris Long, a former number 2 overall pick, who wound up being a really good but not necessarily great player. And I think if Aiden Hutchinson is the second coming of Chris Long, I think we in Detroit will be pretty happy about that. I should say most people in Detroit will be pretty happy about. That's a damn good football player that's going to be a really good asset for you for a long time.
And you know, and he's got his dad. It's always so helpful when your dad is not either a former player or a coach. It just gives you a head start on a lot of other kids that you're going up against, and it shows. He's just, you know, he's got such advanced understanding of the game based on that the way that he grew up. You know, his techniques already are like pro level. So he's got all those other little things that we talk about that maybe fans don't really understand as much. They just want to see sacks and all that stuff, which, by the way, he just happens to be a very good. If you take a look at just at the 2 players that were chosen first and second, who was the better statistical player? It was Hutchinson. So
yeah,
you can't even.
If you're worried about his sack production, watch the Ohio State game and watch what he did to a really good offensive line.
Absolutely,
that was humiliating for the Buckeyes.
And I agree with you. He can be a better player than he was in college. You know,
yep.
And especially if the right coach, because he can play inside, he can play outside. So it's a great addition to the team. And then they made the move that usually a team like the Patriots make. You know, it's the Ravens or whatever. You know, the year in year out winning programs make, trading up to get a guy like Jameson Williams, because there were a bunch of people thinking, okay, well, is somebody going to trade up and get Jameson? Well, the Saints were going to do it, or this team were going to, but nobody thought it was going to be a team like the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, if you would have told me before the draft that somebody was moving up for it, I would have said the Eagles.
True.
And
yes.
they were a good candidate to do it too.
Yes.
But the Lions did it. They sent 32, 34, and 66. And they got back Jameson Williams and 46. And they did it within the division, which shows you how much they really wanted him. And because they were willing to give that up to a division rival in Minnesota. And also B, just the value that they got. I think... Look, I like Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah a lot as the new GM in Minnesota, and I think he's going to be a problem for Detroit. But, yeah, Brad Holmes won that exchange.
Why do you like him
first
a lot,
time? He took a little bit of an advantage of a rookie GM there, a rookie colleague, and I'll take it.
Why do you like him a lot?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to be very good, and Minnesota is somebody that you're going to have to worry about as a Lions fan going forward. Chicago, not so much, but Minnesota, they had an interesting draft. We won't talk about them, but
Sure.
I love the idea of being that aggressive. That shows you
That's
just
awesome.
how much they coveted what Jameson Williams can do for the offense. Like the best vertical threat in the game. He's going to come in. I know he's got the ACL, but in terms of like he can win with more than just running 7, 8, and 9 routes. He can run crossers. He's good on screen passes at making the first guy miss. He's got length. One of the first things that everybody noted in rookie minicamp is like he's taller than I thought he was. Like he's a legit 6'2" with long, wiry arms. Like he's not this small speed. He's not Deshaun Jackson. He's a lot bigger than that. And I think that was one of the pre-draft myths about him was that he's kind of a smaller, well, he's light. He's only 180 and looks every little ounce of that.
Sure.
But man, he's got the potential to really impact the entire offense because you're gonna you cannot leave a single guy on him. He's going to run by him, so which means your safety is going to have to go, and that opens things up for Amon-Ra St. Brown. It opens things up for T.J. Hawkinson coming back healthy. Opens things up for one of the best receiving backs in the game, and DeAndre Swift coming out of the backfield. Like we were talking about how Jared Goff is set up to succeed. Having Jameson Williams and the impact that he has on the opposing defense, whether he's catching the ball or not.
Yes.
Like I equate it to back when Will Fuller joined the Houston Texans, and he couldn't catch a cold. But the fact that he could run down the field and Deshaun Watson was willing to throw it to him made everybody else in that entire offense better. And that's the kind of impact that Williams can have. And Williams is a much better natural catcher of the ball than what Will Fuller was. So I'm very excited about it.
He just has to stay healthy, something Will Fuller was unable to do. But
Definitely.
Jameson Williams, like you said you are a little bit concerned with the frame because of how twitchy he is too. It's like he has sudden impact in his moves that you do wonder, is he a little prone to the injuries based on his size? So I don't know whether or not that, I'm sure they're going to try to build up more muscle and so forth, and whether he has that ability on his body or not, who knows? Do you think they're going to try to limit him on special teams, even though he's so dynamic on special teams?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see him being a gunner on special teams in the NFL.
No gunner. No.
He might get some return looks. Look, they do have an opening for a return man. That's going to be one of the camp battles that we're going to watch this summer. There's a lot of candidates. Williams won't be one of them simply because he's injured. I don't know if he's going to be ready to go week 1 or not. Like he's talking up a very good game, and he's certainly progressing very well. We've actually had interactions with the surgeon who performed the surgery and the people who were running the rehab with him. He would probably be capable of playing week 1 if they need him to, but they're not going to rush it. They've made that very clear. They understand that this is a 4 or 5 year investment. You don't blow that in 1 or 2 weeks at the beginning of the season. So for fantasy football purposes, you probably want to hold off on drafting him a little bit or valuing him so high. But yeah, the impact that he's going to have on Detroit, it's undeniable once he's out there, whether it's week 1, week 3, week 5. Okay. They have a bye week 6. That would be a very convenient way to put him on the PUP and bring him back later and keep somebody else on the active roster rather than carrying him along. We'll see what happens with that. We got a lot of time to figure that out, but that's the general worst case scenario is that he sits through the bye week.
Well, that is something we'll know more about when we talk to you again before we preview the season.
Definitely.
Okay, Josh Pascal was the round 2 pick for the team, and I know he's not, Hutchinson and all these other edge rushers or defensive linemen, and they've got all those high impact stats we talked about. Pascal's not that type of player, but that's okay. Not everybody on your line has to be Aiden Hutchinson. There's other roles for other players, and Pascal's one of those guys. You're talking about the only 3-time team captain in Kentucky history. So you're basically looking at, a high IQ, blue collar, high effort type of player that is going to do a lot of the dirty work, and he's going to be a leader for your team, and he seems like he's going to be a really good addition.
Oh, absolutely. And the guy that he compares most readily to is a guy like Michael Brockers, who happens to be on the team. Brockers, by the way, is the only guy over 30 on the entire roster. But he is the same sort of player what did Michael Brockers do really well with the Rams? He was a facilitator. He helped Aaron Donald get better. He helped the linebackers behind him become more effective, even though you don't know most of their names. Like he's a very good dirty work guy, and that's what Paschal is. He is a guy who is going to he can play the 3, he can play the 4, he can play the 7 if you need him to. Power over speed, but he has the speed too. Like there's a whole lot to like about him, and just if you've ever heard him talk, my goodness, he is a remarkable human being. This is the kind of guy that is like you want as if you're a high school coach, you want to bring him in to talk to your kids, to motivate them about not just being a football player, but about being a good human being and the impact that you can have. He overcame cancer. He was the keynote speaker at the SEC banquet at the end of the season last year, and it was easy to see why. Very magnanimous, humble guy. And that's a big theme for this regime, is bringing in guys who are really good human beings off the field. Very, like, they live and die for football, but they also understand that there's a lot more than football out there. That's a pretty common thread through all of these players. Look, another guy, we might not see a lot of him as a rookie. Like he ostensibly plays the same position as their second round pick from a year ago, Levi Onwuzurike, who was injured. Never really panned out as hoped as a rookie. Whether he fits in there, you still got Brockers in the mix. Hutchinson can also play that spot. They have some other options as well.
That's a lot of versatility.
There is, and that's one of the things that you're going to see. It's a bad word to say the word multiple. I'm putting that in air quotes because of the regime that was here before it. But Aaron Glenn's defense is going to be able to go 3-man front, 4-man front, 5-man front. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they ran some 5-1-5 looks. And the ability for a lot of those guys to play a lot of different spots on that line will mean that the offense is going to be guessing what they're doing when they get out there. And that's not like the Detroit Lions defense has not dictated to the opposing offense what the offense can do in a really long time. And that's something that we're going to see this defense at least try to do. They're going to be proactive and aggressive rather than reactive and passive. And I'm very excited about that.
All right. Next up, they stayed on defense and went with another high IQ player in Kirby Joseph. I mean, you talk about a player like if we were talking about the draft going into the last season, nobody's talking about Kirby Joseph. Nobody.
Nope.
Not only that, but he ends up as a 3rd-round draft pick. So what was it specifically? Was there something specific that they liked about the kid?
Playmaking. He got 5 interceptions last year, and he did it from coming from a role where I don't think Illinois was real sure about what they had with him, and they just sort of turned him loose as a kind of a center fielder. And he might play that role. Look, this is a defense that generally plays split safeties. So he and Tracy Walker are going to be out there as split safeties, but Joseph has the ability to roam as a single high safety if they want to play that. And that puts Walker in a situation where he's a little bit better, working in the slot. Playmaking, making impact plays on the defense is a big thing that their secondary, quite frankly, hasn't done well enough. Especially since they got rid of Darius Slay. Look, Amani Arawaye got 5 interceptions a year ago. That's great. They need more than that. And Joseph is the kind of guy, is a coverage-oriented safety who can really help get some quick drives. Turn the ball over. That's the name of the game, and he's there for that. He's not a great tackler. He's not exceptional in run support. That's okay. That's one of the reasons why he's in the 3rd round and not the 1st round. Like, there are some wars to his game.
Sure.
But what he does well is what the Lions specifically want to do better.
What about now? Do you think that Deshaun Elliott is he going to be penciled in as a starter alongside Walker?
I hope so. I hope he's healthy because I really liked what he did with the Ravens when he was healthy there, and I think his ability to drop down into the box. It is a lot better than what Joseph does, and it allows them to sort of mix Joseph in. They can almost platoon them, really. Whether if the other team is in a 22 package, Elliott comes in. If they go to 4 wide, you bring Joseph in. I think you're going to see some of that, more mixing and matching than having. Like, I would expect Elliott to play the predominance of the snaps, especially early on. But if Joseph proves worthy, then I think you'll see more of him.
Okay, let's go to offense now with the 5th round pick and James Mitchell. a 3-year starter, another kid coming back from an ACL injury, only played 2 games last year, but this injury was earlier, of course, than Jameson
Yeah.
Williams' injury. Interesting because he's not, again, look, not talking about a 5th-round tight end, so we're not talking about one of the first-round grade guys because you don't need that guy. You have TJ Hawkinson, and we talked
Right.
before the draft about finally giving Hawkinson an opportunity to stop staying inside and blocking, and because he's such a good blocker too, that you're taking away from his ability to exploit defenses. And now this is part of hopefully the solution is to bring in a guy like James Mitchell so Hawkinson can be more of a receiver instead of just a 50-50 blocker receiver.
Yeah, and Mitchell, his size, his length, and his power, he doesn't necessarily have the polish yet as an inline blocker, but you can see him being the inline blocker, over top the right tackle. And TJ Hawkinson in the slot goes in motion, does a lot of different things. Mitchell can also play an H-back if you need him to. I don't think that they're going to use him in that kind of a role. Look, they like Jason Cabinda as their fullback a lot. Mitchell, by the way, will be his backup. As the backup fullback, they're going to cross train him on that. So there's definite potential there. Okay. Look, when you go back and you watch what he did in 2020, like this guy, like wow, you can see why the appeal was there. Even though he barely played last season, he's coming back. He is definitely ahead of where Williams is. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he winds up playing in the preseason just to get his feet wet. Look, they needed a number 2 tight end. Their number 2 tight end entering the draft was Brock Wright, an undrafted free agent out of Notre Dame last year. To Brock Wright's credit, he played better than some guys who got drafted, but they need more. And having that ability to come in there. They also, by the way, and I'll bring this up now, undrafted free agent Derek Deese Jr., you remember his dad, is a tight end from San Jose State that they signed after the draft. He is probably the most likely undrafted free agent to make the roster too. So that could very well be their tight end room right there.
No, I'm glad you brought him up, and we were going to go into some of those players, but since we're on to tight end, I actually was surprised in a way that he didn't get drafted.
I was too.
Another guy that comes from he's got the family bloodlines, and I guess what it is the size issue, and is he really a tight end? Is it more of he was just taking advantage of the fact that he is built more like a wide receiver playing tight end, that kind of stuff. So I get all that, but you just put the film on, watch him play, and I'm sorry, he's a draftable player in my mind. So yeah, I agree with you. I'd be surprised if he didn't somehow either makes the final roster or he's definitely going to be close to doing it on the practice squad.
Oh, absolutely. He will certainly be somebody that they will value, and you can see him being on the protected practice squad list throughout the season if he's not on the roster. Absolutely.
All right. 6th-round pick was another one of those players that when you're going deep into your draft research and you take a look at some of these players and you realize they're not going to be drafted in the 1st or 2nd round, but you say, wow, I mean, here's a kid, Malcolm Rodriguez, who started 4 years, was Big 12 linebacker of the year. He has the instincts. He has the motor. He has the physicality. He can cover running backs and tight ends in the backfield. He's got the stats. He's a 3rd-round grade from our lads, and he's there in the 6th round. I mean, how awesome of an opportunity it is to pick up a guy like this in the 6th round. When we talked before the draft, you had mentioned that what the team really can use is somebody who can run and cover at linebacker. Well, they got one in the 6th round.
And they absolutely did. And I don't think that people appreciate what Malcolm Rodriguez did. Like, he played in the Big 12, and Oklahoma State was an anomaly in the Big 12 in that they tried to win with defense.
Yeah, they were awesome defense last year.
They were. And he was the ringleader of that. You watch him play, and I will quote Lance Zierlein from NFL.com on this. He said, I don't know the exact quote, but I'll summarize, that Rodriguez has the best football radar of any linebacker in this draft, and that he always knows where the play is going to be going. He might not always get there, but his ability to decipher where the play is going to be happening and where he needs to get to was better than anybody else in this draft. And I totally agree with that. It absolutely shows on tape. Look, he's 5'11", 220, 225. He told us he's going to try to play between that range. Not the fastest guy, but he's not slow. But yeah, he is such. Look, Chris Spielman, my football hero, my Ohio State jersey and one of my Lions jerseys is Chris Spielman. I'm not saying that he's Chris Spielman, but I'm saying if you liked the way that Chris Spielman played linebacker back in 1988 and 1995, you're going to like the way Malcolm Rodriguez plays linebacker. He's not like, the ceiling isn't there, but the fundamentals and the toughness and the intelligence with which he plays, it harkens back to number 54.
And hey, I'm sure maybe old number 54 had something to do about Rodriguez being drafted.
That wouldn't surprise me at all, since he's part of the front office again.
So yeah, like you were saying, not the height and the length isn't there, a little bit small for the position, but he'll get the job done. Okay. Round 6, they go with James Houston. Now, here's a very intriguing prospect because played linebacker at Florida for 3 years, and he's just a guy. He's okay.
Yeah.
But transfers down to the lower levels at Jackson State to play with Dion. And these stats are absolutely incredible in his 1 year. Size very similar to Rodriguez, by the way.
Yeah,
but he
undersized.
16 and a half sacks, 7 forced fumbles, and 2 touchdowns playing defensive end for Jackson State last year. This was just last year.
Yeah, in 1 year. And he was, like you said, he was just a guy at linebacker. He wasn't going to start at Jackson State as an off-ball linebacker. Dion saw the athleticism and the quickness with which he gets off the blocks and said, I want him to disrupt the passer. And he did a very good job of that. It's a tough sell as a 6'1", 230-pound edge rusher in the NFL.
Yeah.
And where he fits in Detroit, honestly, we're still kind of wondering about that. They definitely see him as primarily as a pass rusher, but there is a niche for a guy who can feign the rush and drop and play some off-ball skills. I don't know if he's got that kind of ability, but they're certainly going to try it and see what they've got. At worst, he's a dynamic edge rusher who can also be a demon on special teams.
Yeah, there you go.
And look, if you're a 6th-round pick, you got to find your way to make a roster. Look, he honestly, he faces an uphill battle to get in the lineup on defense because they still have Romeo Okwara coming back. Julian Okwara is still there. Hutchinson's on the other side. Charles Harris, they brought him back. Like that's kind of their pass rushing stable right there. And Paschal can fit in there. And they have some options with that. But if he can bring it on special teams and be a situational NASCAR package rusher and play even 100 snaps on defense for the year, look, honestly, that's a win for a 6th-round pick.
Yep.
And I think the fact that he that's another very high character, high quality, student guy. This is a guy who put his time in as a student athlete. Like that's a big thing for this regime, and he's another one that reflects that.
And then the last pick went to cornerback Chase Lucas from Arizona State, a 5-year starter, first team Pac-12. Another player who had an ACL, but that was earlier in his career. He actually has return ability. So you just talked about special teams. Maybe he'll get a shot at that. He could also play the slot. So what have they said about the reason why they drafted Lucas?
Yeah, Lucas, their openings on the cornerback position are in the slot. Right now, last year, A.J. Parker, undrafted free agent of Kansas State, was the starter. I'm not going to badmouth A.J. Parker because I thought he played well above his pay grade, but they do need to get better. And Lucas offers that potential. Another very smart, intelligent football player who has good athleticism, but relies as much on his head as he does his body to make plays and be in the right spot. He's got some interesting tape. Some of it is really good. Some of it is you understand why he wasn't projected necessarily to get drafted or was a 7th-round pick. It's finding that good and augmenting it and finding where he can do that. And if he's competing for the starting slot, Will Harris might get moved there as a safety. I don't think he's going to play much safety anymore. They liked what they saw from him a little bit in the late audition at cornerback. If that's that's the kind of range that he's in. He's fighting for that and fighting to make the practice squad in that range.
Sure.
It's going to be one of those. He's like you said, another magnanimous character guy. 3-time team captain at Arizona State, played under Herm Edwards, understands the pro mentality because Herm didn't always work for Arizona State, but he brought that pro style to that team. And I think that's something that's very appealing. He's not going to be awed by being in the NFL. He's not going to be overwhelmed by what's going to be asked of him because he's been asked to do those things before. And that's important for a late round pick.
Who is right now, if you had to say as of right now today, who would be penciled in at nickel? Who would it be?
I'll go off the board a little bit. I'll say Jeff Okudah will be starting on the inside. With that, some of that is the fact that I think Jerry Jacobs, who was an undrafted free agent last year, who was, by the way, Pro Football Focus's best undrafted free agent at any position last year and proved it. I think if he's back from his knee and he's on schedule to be that, he'll be starting at one side, Amani Oruwariye on the other. They got Ifeatu Melifonwu from last year who played well once he got healthy. They have a lot of outside options. They don't necessarily have the slot options. Okudah coming back from his Achilles. He's posted videos. He looks good. I'm rooting so hard for that guy because he's taken an inordinate amount of BS from a lot of people in the Detroit media and the Detroit fans. Just because, look, as a number 3 overall pick, you had expectations. He has not lived up to them, and I get that. But if he's healthy, he's got a chance to be a difference maker. And his game translates better than any other guys into the slot. So I think that's my prediction of what happens. What actually happens is that's what we're going to find out this summer.
If Jacobs isn't healthy, does Mike Hughes start?
Mike Hughes is another option. I do think they like him outside better than they do inside. Okay. And if they watched him play in Kansas City, they're right.
Okay, now we talked about one of those players that were signed after the draft, Derek Deese Jr., and there were 5 notable players that I targeted.
All right.
Deese being one of them. 2 of them were 5th-round grades at our lads. And one of them is Josh Johnson, the wide receiver from Tulsa. And by the way, the team also signed Khalil Pimpleton, who was a first-team wide receiver and punt returner for Central Michigan in the MAC. And also MAC Special Teams Player of the Year. He had 2 punt return touchdowns. So Pimpleton's going to get an opportunity to right off the bat potentially be the team's top punt returner. You think that's a possibility? What about Josh Johnson? How could he fit in?
They're both competing for the same slot spot.
Okay.
Working out of the slot as the quicker than fast, but also fast guys. I think they're competing for that role. And remember, Khalif Raymond is back. He's also on the small side. He's smaller than both of those guys. Pimpleton's not a big guy, but the guy who can catch a simple, 2-yard slant or a bubble screen and take it up the field with the return skills that they've got. There is an opening for that, and I think those 3 guys are fighting for that spot.
Yeah, because Josh Johnson, he has like kind of similar traits to like what was it? Is it Raymond or Reynolds? I think one of those 2 guys is very similar to. I can't remember.
Yeah, Khalif Raymond is that guy. Khalif's a really small guy, but he can fly and he can get to top speed off of one step.
Okay.
And that ability. Look, he for a while last year he was a number 2 wide receiver. That's way higher than he needs to be.
Yeah.
But you're looking at the guy who's going to be the number 5, possibly number 6 receiver and special teams return specialist. That's where that competition is, and Johnson certainly belongs in that competition. He's got some dynamic ability to him. A guy who is a frequent commenter of mine on Twitter. He's bugging me about Josh Johnson all the time. And I keep making jokes at him that I'd rather have the Josh Johnson who is the journeyman quarterback. Well, I'm beyond that now. I've watched enough of Tulsa tape to know that I like this guy too.
All right, we'll see. I mean, he, Arledge believes he has the, the opportunity to be one day maybe as high as a number 3 receiver. So
that'd be great.
We'll see if he can attain that goal. Absolutely. Okay, Obena Eze, offensive tackle from TCU, another 5th-round grade. That Detroit was able to sign a 4-year Memphis career and a 2-year starter there. So, matter of fact, here's a quote from our lads: "Moldable piece of clay that brings elite and rare traits to the table."
Well, his length is unreal. Over 36-inch arms. He's 6'7". He is a guy that wins with his initial punch. The problem is he's got to win with the initial punch. If he misses or if he's high on it, he's in trouble. He just doesn't have the functional athleticism to recover from that. That's one of the issues that you have when you're a long guy. Look, it takes a longer for you to reload. Yeah. But he's got some interesting. This is a team that right now their backup offensive tackles are 6'10" Dan Skipper and 6'7" former defensive end Matt Nelson. They like the length big time. That's a very big trait that this regime likes. He certainly fits into that. If he can show that he can handle the power and make a little bit of movement in the run game, which is where Nelson has earned that position, he's a guy who can move some people as a reserve tackle or even as your number 6 lineman. That's the role that Ezzy is going for. The guy who played at TCU can do that. The guy that I saw at Memphis, I'm not so sure. I like what he did with the Horned Frogs. I thought he improved his game and improved his ability to adapt to what the rush was coming at him. He was very one-dimensional to me when he was at Memphis. I think he expanded his game enough, and if he can keep growing on that, he's got a spot in the NFL. If not in Detroit, somewhere else.
Well, I mean, because we talked the last couple of years about how good we were just talking about at the beginning of the show about the weapons and what Goff has to work with. But it all starts with the offensive line, and that's such. I don't think anybody would realize if you ask the general fan base to rank, the top 5 or even 10 offensive lines in football, I bet you nobody even puts Detroit in there, and yet they could be one of the best. Yes,
they should. Yeah. Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell as your tackles. I'm not going to say that they're the best,
sure,
but you can see the best from there. Frank Ragnow might be the best center in the league. He was out most of last season. They brought in Evan Brown off the street basically, and he wound up being a better center than a lot of starters. And he's back. The guards, Jonah Jackson made the Pro Bowl as a 3rd-round rookie. Halapula Vaitai, really another invaluable, indispensable human being, leader, locker room presence who really helped Sewell as he transitioned from left tackle to right tackle in the midseason. As right guard, look, he's not better than slightly above average, but if he's your worst offensive lineman, you got a dang good offensive line. And they really showed it last year. And I think with Ragnow coming back, with Sewell having experience in a full offseason of playing right tackle, they very well could be the best offensive line in football next year.
And I mentioned that because we were talking about Eze, because what there is, though, is there is room to add more much-needed depth to the position.
And specifically at tackle, that they have Tommy Kramer and Ryan McCollum from last year, undrafted free agents, who proved enough to come back as interior guys. And Evan Brown's back. But there is an opening to push Nelson, push Skipper off possibly the roster. That's where Ezzy can come in, and he's got a real shot to do that.
And then the only other player that I figured I'd mention was Greg Bell, the running back from San Diego State, because he was a 1,000-yard rusher last year. He's a physical rusher. He's got that San Diego State. That's what San Diego State likes to do in college football. They want to run the football and play defense. That's all they like to do. They've had some really good running backs over the years. Greg Bell is not on that list, but he's still a productive player. And anytime you get a running back, even the rookies, you always got to wonder, especially the ones that are productive in college, because you just never know. In NFL, things could be a lot different. So what about that? But it's a good room of running backs, especially the top 3 with Jefferson. I put Jefferson into that top 3.
And he belongs there. Yeah, and Jermar Jefferson is your number 3 running back. He was inactive most of last season as a 7th-round rookie, and it wasn't because he wasn't good enough. Yeah. Like DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, that's a really good 1-2 punch. They complement each other very well. Craig Reynolds came in when Swift got hurt and had a couple of monster games. He fell off from that, but he did enough to earn a 2-year contract as a street free agent that's bounced around a little bit. I'm very happy for Craig Reynolds. That's a guy that you want to root for. So their top 4 spots are set. So you're looking. He's competing with Godwin Igwebuike, who at this time last year was playing safety. Running back, return man, has some fumble problems that might be his downfall and might be where Bell can stick. They do need practice squad guys, and I think, look, he's got a real shot to stick at the practice squad. But cracking the 53-man roster is going to be real tough for any running back. They like what they've got there, and they're pretty good there.
Was there any other rookies that were signed that I did not mention? And also, if we were talking, because we talked about this last year, we went over the rookies, the signings, and so forth. So are any of those players from last year ready to take potentially a jump this year that we should keep an eye on?
Yeah, Wright is certainly one of them. I'm personally not his biggest fan, but he's got the potential to be a more useful tight end than what he was last season. They're looking for big things from Derek Barnes in his second year at linebacker. They traded up to get him last year in the draft, third round. Didn't have a very impressive rookie season. Did some things well, but needs to do a lot more things. He's penciled in to start. That's going to be a big leap for him. He's certainly got the ability to do it. I loved him coming out of Purdue. I wish they would rush him more. He only rushed the passer 21 times last year. I would like to see that number triple, even as an off-ball linebacker, which he's converting to. But yeah, they did very well last year. They have a staff of former players who are all really good teachers and developers of talent. And I think you saw that pay off last year. This team got rocked with injuries. And while their record reflects that they were at the bottom, they didn't play like a bottom feeder all that often. They plug guys in, Jerry Jacobs, A.J. Parker, we talked about these guys. A lot of those guys can do a lot more now that they're in the system and comfortable. But the other part of that is the guys who are coming back healthy, Okuda, Malif Onwu, you're getting some of those guys back. Ragnar coming back. Some of those guys might get pushed off the roster, and it's going to be real interesting to see. And we've already seen it. There's already been a couple of guys that the Lions have let go who've been claimed by other people. They hadn't had two players cut by the team and claimed by another team since 2014. That's already happened this offseason. Wow. So that sort of tells you where the talent level is coming at in Detroit. Yeah. It needed to get better. It's gotten better.
We're going to talk probably right around at some point around training camp or preseason. So I just got to ask you about would the kicker job be one of the big and is that pretty much going to be about the three guys that are there right now? There's no other absolutely. Outside guys, just those three guys.
Riley Patterson is the front runner. He played well last year. Aldrich Rosas and Austin Seibert are there. Seibert's coming back off of an injury. You hate to see a guy lose his job to an injury, but if he can't perform, like kicking is totally performance based. There's no level. It's going to be a fun battle. Quite frankly, I'm surprised that three are still on the roster now. That could change soon, but yeah, I don't see them looking for outside help there.
All right, and they have enough money to make a move, but you don't really think they're going to as far as a free agent.
No, they got a little over $10 million. They want to see what they've got, and I think they're a team that is saving that. Like, if Jared Goff gets hurt and Tim Boyle as the backup quarterback proves that he's Tim Boyle again, who is just one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. I hate to say it that way, but he was rotten. I don't get it. I don't get why they re-signed him, quite frankly. That's about the only move that I could see is going and getting a better backup quarterback if they need to. Possibly if the linebacking crew, like they signed Chris Board, they brought Jared Davis back. It's sort of the spaghetti at the wall thing to see if any of those guys stick. If they don't, they could possibly target a guy that gets cut at the end of preseason who could maybe stick around for a year or two. But they want to see what they've got. They want to build off the guys that they trust in this room. So I don't see them making a move for a current street free agent right now until they absolutely have to.
And then the other thing to watch is going to be Ben Johnson. And is he going to be – because he's not going to call plays, correct?
We don't know that yet. Dan Campbell has waffled on that,
right.
And Johnson very smartly defers to his head coach. So,
but you like Johnson? You like what they got there?
I do. We got a chance to talk with him at the Combine a little bit in a kind of a breakout session with the local media. Very energetic, very creative mind. I think you're going to see some things that we haven't seen in Detroit since the days of Marvin Jones and Golden Tate lining up the year that they had Calvin Johnson. Obviously, they don't have Calvin Johnson anymore, but the ability to mix and match receivers and dictate coverages and dictate to the defense, like we talked about, the defense wants to dictate what the opposing offense can do. The offense wants to do that to the opposing defense. Being the proactive aggressor, Johnson definitely has that mentality. I expect there's going to be some lumps in it, and I expect that there will be some growing pains, but he's a creative young mind that I don't think gets enough credit for the potential that he's got.
Well, I hope he uses Hutchinson in a lot of creative ways since I have him on my Dynasty League team. So I need Hutchinson to break out because he's
arrow's
that type of
pointing
guy.
way up, baby. As long as he can stay healthy, he's going to be really, really good.
Jeff, I appreciate it. Great job as always informing us on the Detroit Lions. And like I said, we'll talk to you again right around training camp early in the preseason when we get an opportunity to really preview the 2022 season for the Lions. And I can't wait for that interview because that means football season is around the corner.
Oh, yes, sir. It's going to be a glorious time. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to the next time.
You got it, Jeff. Take care.